Good afternoon, everyone out there in SADS Facebook Live land. Great to be with you on this first Friday of February. We're February 5, 2021. And guess what, everyone? Episode number 50 today of the Sudden Arrhythmia Death Syndrome Facebook Live session. Number 50. Wow. It's great to be with you. I'm Mike Ackerman, genetic cardiologist at Mayo Clinic and director of Mayo Clinic's Windland Smith Rice Genetic Heart Rhythm Clinic and the Windland Smith Rice Sudden Death Genomics Laboratory. And on behalf of our CEO of the Sudden Arrhythmia Death Syndrome Foundation, the SADS Foundation, Alice Laura, it's great to get to be with you again today. Today, it's your time and my time to try to do my best to answer your questions. So let them roll in. And I'm looking forward to seeing who's joining us live. Many of you will watch this on tape. And wherever you are and whatever this finds you, I hope this podcast, this session, whatever we call it, number 50, finds you well, finds you safe, finds you corona-free. And I already have one from Carrie, first COVID-19 vaccine in her arm. Congrats, we're well on our way. Speaking of COVID-19, as we've done when we did the very first one, and every week, mask up. Here's one at Mayo Clinics. You can wear that. I have that on all the time. Or look at this one that I got this last week from a benefactor to our program. And let me see if I can show you. Yeah, well, my alma mater, Luther College in Decorah, Iowa. They sent me that. So North Strong. So put the mask on. Remember, 60% or more, the virus SARS-CoV-2 does not like alcohol. 60% or more. Wash your hands. Stay distant. When it's your turn to get the vaccine, get the vaccine. No vaccine hesitancy out there, everyone. I got mine. So I completed my second one 9 days ago. And so our family so far, knock on wood, the Ackerman family, 4 adult kids, my wife, our granddaughter, we so far have made it corona-free. In the world, we've crossed 105 million documented cases, 2.29 million deaths. In the United States, 26.7 million confirmed cases, 456,000 deaths. But some good news, 26 million confirmed cases, 36 million Americans vaccinated already. This is good. And some have thought that for every one confirmed case, there's probably at least 5 unconfirmed COVID-19 cases because it was so mild. So we could have somewhere around 100 million of our 360 million Americans with the infection naturally, 36 million vaccinated, vaccinating about 1.2 million a day. So we are going to do this. We are doing this, and hang in there. Be optimistic. I'm optimistic. We're going to get this behind us. And I see those joining. Wearing red. Sherry, did you notice that? Check this out. Today, February is Heart Month in the United States. I'm not sure. You guys can correct me. Is February Worldwide Heart Month or just a USA designation? Whatever it is Heart Month here, and it's Friday is Go Wear Red Day. My wife set out my clothes for me this morning, like she always does when she's happy with me. That's another conversation, but she did. And then I remembered at 5 this morning that this was Go Wear Red Day, and I didn't want to wake her up. So I had to go into my closet, find red by myself. And that's not easy because I'm really, really colorblind. But I did. I remembered which one was kind of the red one. And I put this on for you all today. So thinking of Heart Month, next week, we have a couple of really wonderful volunteers for the SADS Foundation with us at SADS Foundation, who I'll have a chance to have a conversation with about their volunteerism and their activities for the cause of heart health. So excited about that program next week. I see Dana from Ireland and Sonia from the UK. And I hear there's progress, real progress in the United Kingdom with their vaccination program. I can't wait to meet Carol, your family, and your granddaughter. I'm looking forward to that. And I get my first question, so I'm going to do it. As I see questions come in, we're going to take them. So any and every question you have, I will do my absolute best to give you a spontaneous answer. If I'm not sure of the answer or its correctness, I'll tell you that. And we'll try to make sure we get the answer for you. But Rebecca's question today is her daughter, oh my, had PVCs with tachycardia and she died last September 12th. I'm so sorry to hear that. Her death was classified as sudden unexplained death in childhood, SUDC, which presumes that there was an autopsy done and the autopsy found nothing. So I'm assuming that. The genetic test showed a VUS, an uncertain variant in XIRP2. Do you think that's the reason for her death? Question Brugada. Rebecca, I'm so sorry and about your family and your daughter's death. We certainly would want to partner with you to try to figure out whether that's relevant. Offline, if you could send me the details and Alice and the team from SADS, and I'll review that genetic variant to see what I think about it. This gene, XIRP2, is a really, really rare gene for Brugada syndrome. Brugada syndrome as a cause of death for a female child is really uncommon. So it's not feeling like the correct answer that it's the cause, but I'm happy to look into that. Melissa shares that her 9-year-old LQT1 son on Nadolol, I love that beta blocker, as you know, and my husband and I tested negative. How can this be? First, and then what's the link between swimming and LQT1? Great questions, Melissa. Almost always, as you know, moms are moms and dads are dads. So if maternity and paternity has been correctly assigned to the child, I make no assumptions, then what your son has is something that's called a denovo mutation or a spontaneous germline mutation that arose in his genetic code, your son's, after conception. Normal egg, normal sperm, Shazam, and during that Shazam phase post-conception, the LQT1 causative mutation was crafted into your son's genetic code during those first hours and day of the human embryo. Now, there is another rarer cause. So de novo mutation, meaning started new in you, or in this case, new in your son. That's true in about 5% of all long QT cases. It's true in about 10% of all CPVT cases. And so that's the most likely explanation. There is a setting in which there can be something called gonadal mosaicism, where your genetic code, blood, from the blood DNA is normal, so is the dad's, but in enough of your eggs or enough of the sperm in the gametes, the mutation is there. And so the only reason I point that out is if there are other children or other siblings to your son, in my program, I would test them as well, just for the rare possibility that one of the parents could be a mosaic, as it's called, where it's in the egg or in enough sperm, but not in the germline in the blood. Link with swimming and LQT1, lots of possibilities why it's such a strong association with long QT type 1, almost exclusively, and CPVT. For the LQT1, it has to do probably with the kind of breathing we do when we swim. It's a little bit asymmetric breathing, differently than we do with dry land aerobics. So that breath hold sensation or the jumping into cool water, activating potentially a dive reflex, suddenly slowing down the heart, catching the LQT1 heart off guard and tripping it up into the danger rhythm. Some possible explanations there. Lisa, with your 16-year-old daughter, also almost confused me for a second, because unfortunately your daughter's sudden cardiac arrest was just 2 days after Rebecca's child's death. But for your daughter, she survived, so I'm thankful for that. And it was determined to be idiopathic. She is reviewing, recovering well. And anyone else or no one else without anyone else without genetic link or history. This gets to, Lisa, what do we do when there's a sudden cardiac arrest survivor? And in your case, your 16-year-old daughter. We do a lot. We run that individual through a lot of tests, minimum ECG, Holter, treadmill stress test, and echo to see, do they show anything that I can detect, notice, diagnose? Then we make decisions whether there's another round of additional tests and whether there should be done genetic testing when there's no obvious diagnosis that's been made yet. So I trust that that evaluation has occurred. And then when nothing is found, that's when I call that cardiac arrest idiopathic VF, or ventricular fibrillation. Idiopathic just means I don't know. We don't know the pathology. Idio, don't know. Some people have used the idiopathic to mean the idiots don't know the reason for my child's cardiac arrest. So it just means it is still unknown, and we keep looking and we keep reviewing the evaluation periodically on that individual to see if anything, any clue emerges. I'm glad she survived and is doing well. And Dana from Ireland, and I'm going to get back there someday, Dana. What is my experience with women who make it to 52 with no symptoms ever, even after being on QT lengthening drugs in the past, before you were diagnosed, having 3 children, diagnosed in the late 40s because of your daughter, but wondering if people would have first event late in life, leading to wondering if you need beta blockers? Great question, Dana. I love that question. First, it's hard for me to answer it with a lot of specifics without knowing a lot of specifics, like what kind of long QT syndrome are you, LQT 1, 2, or 3? Like, how long is your QT number? Is your QTC, and I want you to know that number, and we just published a breakthrough paper on Monday that sets the stage for all of us to be able to know our QTC number easily, regularly, daily potential, and we can potentially talk about that in the future, but we're getting close to making available a QT meter. But what's your QTC? Is it above 500 or is it below? How much below? The more below, the lower your risk. But in general, 52, never a symptom in your life. Your lowest risk years are in front of you. So your risk of a first-time event, unless somebody pokes the hibernating bear and wakes it up, that LQT substrate ought to stay dormant the rest of your long life. Do you need beta blockers? That's a tougher question. We're starting to wonder that. I tweeted this week from a man who's thanked me for giving him his life back after we stopped his beta blocker because the beta blocker had caused a different problem. Low risk, long QT, never an event, new problem, everyday side effects from the medication. So we are willing to explore the notion of what I call intentional non-therapy, where we know it's there. We advise overarching preventative measures, drugs to avoid and so forth, but we do not intentionally start the person on beta blocker therapy. And we're beginning to build an experience with that. Honestly, we're one of the only programs in the world being willing to consider intentional non-therapy. So stay tuned on that, Dana. Hopefully we'll get smarter in the near future about that. Erica, greetings from Germany. Got your diagnosis. Wow, I'm interested to read this. Last week, after 15-year journey, your VUS was changed to a disease-causing mutation as it was found in a second family showing tachycardia. How can mutation be changed in the various databases? Is there a system? Ooh, that's a loaded question, Erica. I think you're onto something that's really important in the field of genomic medicine, genetic cardiology in particular, is what's the process for which genetic variants are reviewed and the veracity of their label, pathogenic variant, likely pathogenic variant, we don't know, VUS, variant of uncertain significance, likely benign. Good news is likely benign variants almost never get upgraded. That's unusual. VUSs are going to swing over time based on knowledge. There are VUSs where the company may call it a VUS, and like that, in a nanosecond, literally, I have said, yes, company said it's a VUS. I disagree. It's the pathogenic variant. It's the cause. All the different genetic test companies are trying to figure out what's their review strategy, what's their notification process, so that amended reports can be provided. So there is a system. I would say the system is a little Wild West, getting better than Wild West style. There's some organization getting to it. It's getting better, and it will keep getting better. Hello to Austria, Toby. I was supposed to be there, as some of you know, last March before the meeting got coronaed, and so I can't wait to get back to Vienna someday. Aaron read a paper of ours that we just recently published in the Journal of American College of Cardiology about the electromechanical window, or the EMW. Tell you what it is and can it really predict major events. We're excited about the electromechanical window, the EMW. This was work that was really first pioneered in Norway with some colleagues that I had the privilege of collaborating with. We've been advancing at Mayo, and at Mayo Clinic now, it is a bona fide test that result that I learned for every one of my patients when they get, and if we decide to get an echocardiogram, an ultrasound of their heart. This is a way that we look and compare the timing of cardiac repolarization, the QT, and the timing of the mechanical contractility from of the closure of the aortic valve. A little complicated, but the point that's quite interesting to us is we showed in this paper that the value, the electromechanical window, is additionally informative besides just the QT interval. That shouldn't be too surprising, because all genetic syndromes are not just mechanical entities or electrical entities. Many of them are both. And if we have a measurement that's sort of looking at both, maybe we can get a better handle. It's still early. If you don't have this, or this number is not being provided during your evaluation, wherever you are throughout the world, no worries. It's not a must-have result or a finding yet, but it's another one that helps me have a better sense of what risk category do I place my patient in, so I can tailor and personalize his or her treatment to try to dial it in, not too hot, not too cold, but get it just right. Valerie's sharing with me, and I'm just seeing the pace I better be at here with the questions flying in now. You guys are on a roll. Where was I? Oh, there it is. Valerie's, your husband went into VF in 2016, got a defibrillator that had a few episodes since, never had genetic testing. Team couldn't find a reason for his condition. How do I ask them to do genetic testing without stepping on their toes? Don't want to be WebMD wife, but you have 3 kids. It's a great question, Valerie. I mean, nobody cares more about the result for your husband and your family than you and your family. And so I think it kind of depends. The team, the local team is right that if there's no label to give your husband for what he did when he did it 4 years ago, and he's classified as idiopathic VF, then officially the guidelines kind of are lukewarm about doing genetic testing when there is no label. In our program, we published this experience to show that in idiopathic VF, there is a positive genetic test rate about 5 to 10%. of those. So not very high, but when our family or that sudden cardiac arrest survivor is among that 5 to 10%, where we gain clarity as to the mechanism, as to the root cause, it helps guide us in terms of the strategy for that survivor and guides us as to testing of the relatives. So I would just respectfully ask and say, is there any possibility, any role in 2021 for genetic testing for IVF or unknown VF? And I think any good cardiology team would be respectful and appreciative of that inquiry. I don't think we were doing it at all in 2016. In my program, I do that now routinely for a cardiac arrest survivor. But I do acknowledge that the performance characteristics of the test are not that good, of the genetic test, nowhere close to the performance characteristics when I know the person in front of me has long QT syndrome or has CPVT. Melissa is updating me that the two others are negative, so that possibility of that mosaicism thing has already been explored. Great team wherever you're from, Melissa. They know what they're doing, and thanks for that on-the-fly update. Marina is sharing with me about having type 2 long QT syndrome. As you know, that's the second most common. In some parts of the world, it's actually the most common genetic subtype. And a couple years ago, the heart paused for 10 seconds and got a pacemaker implanted. Do you think it's relevant to search for the cause of that pause? Probably not. The pause probably had nothing to do with your LQT2. Whether that pause required the pacemaker as a response, that's debatable. It's actually a debate. Many places would not necessarily have put in a pacemaker. If you didn't have LQT2, most of us would not, because we know that an abrupt pause can in fact be a trigger for an LQT2 event. To counter that possibility, since that pause was noted and observed to take place, I kind of like the decision that was made for you. And so I applaud that. But in general, in otherwise healthy people like myself, I probably have 10-second pauses every once in a while, and the response to that is not a pacemaker in general. Is it true that Greg's asking a lot of false positives by placing the precordial leads higher to check for Brugada? Not so much the false positive. What Greg's getting at is if we think somebody has Brugada syndrome, we give 3 ECGs. The standard one with the leads standard across the chest. ECG number 2 recorded after we move those right leads at V1, 2, and 3 up 1 space from their standard position. And then we record a third ECG after we move those leads up another intercostal space. And it helps with the sensitivity to catch Brugada if it's there. And you're right, anything that increases the sensitivity can sometimes decrease the specificity or make for more false positive. We're all aware of that. We just look at it closely and really constrain ourselves to a specific pattern that has to come out during that maneuver. And that's the so-called type 1 Brugada ECG pattern. Let's see. Oh, thanks, Susan. We don't talk about short QT syndrome very often, but in 2012, Susan and 8 of her family members were diagnosed with short QT syndrome. We do not have the known short QT genes. What can we do? I love that question, Susan. I would love to partner with you to discover your family's gene, because if you and 8 of you all have 8 of your relatives truly have short QT syndrome, and it is genetically elusive to the known genes, we ought to be able to find your gene with current strategy. So if you're interested, Susan, reach out to Alice at the SADS Foundation. Her team will get you put in contact with my research team. We would get kits sent out to all of the affected and unaffected family members, gather the ECGs from, make sure we agree that those who are called short QT, I agree with that. Then we sequence your 3 billion nucleotides of genetic information, and we compare those 3 billion nucleotides on everybody who is said to have it. And we look then for what is the one thing that all of those who have it possess in their genetic code. Sounds easy. It's not. It's expensive. But that's why we do research, and we would love to partner with you and your family to try to find your family's version. As you know, when we take people who really have short QT syndrome and run the known genes, we only get an answer about 20% of the time. Whereas if we run somebody who has L instead of S, long QT syndrome, and I know that's the correct diagnosis, we get their answer about 80% of the time with the current generation of genetic testing. And Toby is sharing that, like the denovo story, that his daughter with CPVT from the ryanodine receptor is denovo. And that's not surprising. As I mentioned, denovo CPVT started new in the child, new in you after conception, is more common than de novo long QT syndrome. Christine, her daughter, well, I assume daughter. No, yep, there's daughter. 14 years old, has CPVT, confirmed with the genetic test in de novo. Can you please define what it means to be called pathogenic, and also what type 1 means? Great question, Christine. So when that test came back and found a variant that was then determined to be absent in your daughter's mom, you, and the dad, then we are presuming that it's de novo, started new in your daughter, de novo, new. Then the genetic test company, independent of labeling it as de novo, new in your daughter, they graded the variant, and they graded it with either 3 labels that would be reported to me, the ordering physician: pathogenic, likely pathogenic, don't know for sure, VUS, variant of uncertain significance. When a company calls it pathogenic, that means the evidence is so strong that it is the cause, the smoking gun, that you can almost bet the ranch that that's correct. Likely pathogenic means there's at least 95% confidence, based upon the information that exists in the global knowledge, that it is the cause, but there's that 5% chance that maybe we have overgraded the variant. And then the VUS, as we've talked about in the past, is the company felt, not me, but the company felt that based upon the information that they had access to, that they just were not confident enough to call it pathogenic, nor were they confident enough to disregard it and dismiss it as benign. And so it just means more work to do. The type 1 means when we call somebody CPVT1, that means that their CPVT is because of mutations in the RYR2 gene. So everyone with CPVT, because of RYR2 mutations, you collectively are called CPVT1, subtype number 1. There's CPVT subtype number 2, very uncommon. CPVT subtype number 3, and so forth. Just like there's LQT 1, 2, 3, 9, 16, and so forth. Great question, Christine. I like that. Likelihood of sudden cardiac arrest from Sherry by age. That's hard to give an immediate, when are you most likely to have a spontaneous sudden cardiac arrest, because it depends on the root cause. For example, if the reason for the cardiac arrest was CPVT1, then it's more likely to do that cardiac arrest thing in CPVT1 boys from about age 5 to 15. If, on the other hand, the cardiac arrest was due to something called LQT2, and you were a woman, female, 2X chromosomes, then the more likely time window for expressivity of sudden cardiac arrest would be from about 13 to 30. So it really depends on a lot of items. Oh, neighbor, Wisconsin. Hey, Kelly. Is it possible for a half sibling to have a different long QT, one being LQT1 and one being LQT2? Yes, really uncommon, but I've seen it in my practice. I've had the privilege of taking care of over 2,000 people with long QT, so that's probably on the order of, I don't know, 1,500 unique families. And there are rare occasions where there are two different mutations, an LQT1 thing and an LQT2 thing coexisting in the family tree, and you have to do some work to figure out where it, who has what. So it can happen, uncommon. Kimberly was diagnosed with long QT. Oh my, I got to go fast and furious now. These questions have been incredible. I'll try to do justice. Otherwise, we will probably do, since these questions and answers are so incredible, we'll do them again in 2 weeks or the first Friday of March. Maybe first Friday of the month will turn out to be our time alone with question and answer time. If you like that idea, let the team know. But here we go. 9 minutes rapid fire. Kimberly. It's a little bit hard because some of your questions are getting long. Remember that reminder, make your question tight for me so I can read quickly and digest it, but that's okay. Then not a scolding, just an encouragement. Kimberly is diagnosed with long QT after her cardiac arrest in 2012. Genetic test was negative back then, not on any meds. Since then, no activity with my ICD except some pacing. To figure out what caused your cardiac arrest on bisoprolol. I like that question, Kimberly. I see this so often out there that after somebody does cardiac arrest and they get a defibrillator and they do their initial investigations, the investigations stop. And the mindset out there by too many healthcare providers is, well, you already have your shock box. It's there to protect you. We don't really need to find out the why any longer. Totally disagree. I do a comprehensive evaluation on all of my sudden cardiac arrest survivors every year, at least every other year, depending on where we're at in the journey. I re-examine and I say, should we repeat genetic testing? Yours was done 8 years ago. If they're really calling you long QT, there have been several important genes discovered since 8 years ago. I would also look at one of the most common things, just saw this yesterday in clinic. Many sudden cardiac arrest survivors have been called long QT syndrome, and they're not. So when a sudden cardiac arrest survivor has a negative long QT genetic test, I force myself to re-examine that label and say, am I really sure that you are long QT? Because if it's the correct label, the diagnosis is not hard if it made you do cardiac arrest, for which we know the known genes explain 80% of long QT. So bottom line, it's been 8 years since your cardiac arrest. Much has been learned. Is it time for repeating the genetic testing? Is it time to do another round of investigations to see if we are still comfortable and confident in calling you long QT syndrome? Tara's wondering about talking about the new device, AliveCore. Will this be available as a wearable interest for your daughters choosing to be competitive swimmers? So the AliveCore device, and full disclosure, Mayo Clinic has a relationship with AliveCore. I am one of the inventors for Mayo Clinic on developing QT knowledge in the AliveCore gadget. So the AliveCore is a gadget like this, some of you have seen that, where we have created a QT solution within this device to where we can accurately measure and determine your QTC. It's going to become a QTC meter. We just published a 3 years worth of investigations on Monday. You might have seen a press release about it. If you Google Mayo Clinic AliveCore QTC breakthrough, you'll see some story about that. And maybe we can have a program devoted to some of the Mayo Clinic breakthroughs that have happened. We've had a big week this week with the completion of that 3-year project and our new QTC breakthrough. And then just a week ago, a breakthrough discovery from our program for long QT syndrome gene therapy. Really exciting stuff. Early, we've cured LQT1 in the dish. So some of our patient-specific re-engineered heart cells, we have a long way to go, but it was a giant first step. Many even bigger first steps that we're going to have to achieve successfully to have mission accomplished. But it's been an exciting time. Back to the AliveCore. With our paper published in Circulation on Monday, we will now be assembling that data to submit to the FDA for the FDA to see if they're ready to issue FDA clearance for that device to be recognized as the QTC as a recognized indication. It's not wearable, so it's not going to be a swimming solution, but it is going to, honestly, it's going to be a game changer, not just for my long QT syndrome families. That's going to be important, but way more important as a QT warning system, a QT sudden death safety net. I see it in the future in pharmacies before patients get prescribed a drug that's on the QT hit list. Will we be able to get them QT cleared before that drug is provided? So this is an exciting time with the convergence of knowledge, artificial intelligence, innovation, where we're going to see some new solutions for our long QT families and really all individuals as we advance the notion of the QTC as a vital sign. And I think it is a vital sign. To me, it's one of the most important vital signs. Norin had idiopathic cardiac arrest nearly 20 years ago and has 3 children. How can I protect them? Really, again, a great question. And I think it shows that we probably should spend a little time in the future on idiopathic ventricular fibrillation. What does that mean? How do we evaluate it? What's the evaluation of the children and siblings of that cardiac arrest survivor when nothing's found? So maybe I'll get a future program put together dedicated to what is our current state of knowledge about idiopathic ventricular fibrillation and how do we evaluate cardiac arrest survivors. I know who I have a good idea who we will invite. And Dr. Andrew Cron from Canada, are you by chance out there and listening? I'd love to have you join me for a discussion about this. But for you, I would say 20 years have passed. I would be doing a thorough evaluation on you, Norin, to see, do I still think it's idiopathic, unexplained, or do I now know the reason? And then based upon that information, I would help decide what kind of testing, if any, to do on your 3 children and at what ages should it be done. Let me do this. I can't do justice to the last questions, but we're going to keep these. Let's keep these. And the incredible IT superstar, Aaron Wade, is going to bring these as the starting point holdover set of questions to do on our next question and answer time, because we are at the top of the hour and I want to be respectful of your time. And I was hoping I would see somebody join on the sidebar. And let me go through the bottom of it. And if she's not on here, Diana from California, look at that, you guys. She sent me this. I will show it to you again. She wants to be my partner someday. I can't wait to have you as my partner. And she sent me that as well. So thank you, Diana from California. And next time, be sure to text your name to show me you're there. And I'm going to show that picture again. Well, we're done. We're at 4 o'clock, 2 o'clock. And like I end many episodes, I hope you're not getting bored with these. Look at this. My granddaughter's official first birthday picture from her mommy, my beautiful daughter-in-law. And so Jaden, can't wait to see her again. And I can't wait to see all of you again. So until next time, stay corona-free, refuse to fear, do our part, live and thrive, and blessings to all of you. Can't wait to be with you again next week. Have a great weekend.